Hey guys, how you feeling today? Yeah, it's been a while, and I kind of wanted to talk on a subject that's been on my mind quite recently. It's oftentimes I try and live a little and then come on here to like share stuff. And what I want to talk about today is being spiritually mature. And it took me like I saw a video from someone called Melissa Dorothy. I think that's her name. She's a YouTuber anyway, and she's dope. Like she does a lot of content around helping believers and things like that. So spiritual maturity is something that it's been on my mind quite a while, and I kind of really wanted to like add to the conversation and add a bit more to what it looks like. I can obviously give definitions of what it means, but I try to keep it like 100% real and authentic. So I want to kind of show you how it looks like. I'm not trying to say I am, but when you notice someone who is, it's a blessing, number one, and then you learn a lot from that kind of person in a lot of ways. So yeah, somewhere where I definitely aspire to be, and I'm sure some of you guys also aspire to get there as well. So what are the things I notice with someone who is spiritually mature? I would probably start with humility. Oftentimes we throw that word around, and you can almost get lost in the sauce when people say they're humble. But someone who is actually spiritually mature, you notice that they are humble and exert that humbleness in a way that is, it almost draws your attention. It almost makes you keen to be around that kind of person. They know how to read a room. They know when they're certain themselves. When people are talking, whether in a conversation with one person or a conversation with 10 people, they carry themselves in such a way that even if they do know a lot, especially on certain things, but especially like when you're talking and when you're having conversations with people, discussions, whether you're arguing even, they insert themselves into the argument, into discussion, into the topic that you're talking at that time in such a way that it shows that they are humble. They know, and even if they do know a lot, they're more keen to listen and they're more keen to observe and watch rather than being the guy or being the woman or being the person that's the hot shot or whatever you call it in the conversation or in the topic. So that's definitely, yeah, so that's definitely something I've noticed. Knowing how to read a room, knowing when they are inserting themselves, and they also are accountable to to their friend, accountable to believers as well, accountable to people. So that's something I've noticed, that for those that are spiritually mature, they are accountable. They hold themselves in such a regard that they're assessed, and they are humble enough to be accountable to friends, to family, to to show that what I did, is it okay, or how I came across, was it, and that's a sense of humility. Something I definitely want to get get there, but one step at a time. Um, One thing that I would also mention is that they know how to control their mouth. Control their mouth is knowing how to still be assertive, knowing how to still be like confident in what they say, what they believe, even if they are challenging bad doctrine, even if they are going against things that they, which is bad, doctrine, whether it's bad theory, like theory or whatever. The thing also is knowing how to control their mouths. As funny as that seems, it's quite difficult. Difficult in the sense that for someone who's starting off new, or someone who considers themselves a new believer, they want to insert themselves in conversations, whether that might be through posts they see on social media, whether that might be through traumatic events in everyday life. Things like this can make someone quite rash with their mouth, to quickly say things without knowing fully well the depth of what they're saying. So oftentimes when you see someone who is spiritually mature, they're not quick to say things. If anything, they are probably more observant. They have a level of discernment and knowing when to say things and how to say it as well. So I think there's a saying that a harsh response, can trigger anger, and a way of how you, and a tender response could cool down wrath. I think that's in Proverbs somewhere. So, and that still is very, very like key, and that is something which we take for granted. Oftentimes, arguments can spiral out of control because of the way how someone said something or the way how they responded to something. Yeah, so we try. So I think it's a good way to notice someone who is spiritually mature. They're not so quick to jump at everything, and they have a level of control, self-control, especially with their mouth. Even if something is wrong, knowing when to say it and how to say it. One thing that is also, I think, key for someone who is spiritually mature, or noticing someone who's spiritually mature, is that they are flexible. And when I say flexible, I'm not talking in terms of doing gymnastics and doing all types of flips and cartwheels, but flexible in terms of the way how their behavior and the way how their mannerism is. Say, for example, two people are fighting. The person that's spiritually mature might be offended, and knowing he is right, despite he is right, still has a level of showing compassion and showing this level of I don't know what to call it. It's like they're able to continue a kind of fellowship, continue this kind of brotherhood, or would I say that? So, say for example, they had an argument. The next day, someone who isn't would say, because that person had an argument with that person, I'm probably going to avoid that person. I'm trying to. But that person who is spiritually mature could still come to that person that he had an argument with the day before and still act as if nothing happened. So there's a level of forgiveness, I guess, is what I'm basically trying to say. And that's quite hard because it's not oftentimes you run into someone who you disagree with and you're, on speaking terms, especially not straight away. So I feel like that's a level which we're trying to aspire to be like, what we're trying to go to. And again, it's one step at a time. So that's something you definitely notice with someone who is spiritually mature. A level of forgiveness and not being rash with their mouth and being flexible. Adaptable, doing things that they ought not to do, to the point that even when someone who isn't a believer will see that kind of action, you'll be quite keen to know why is that person like that. You'll be drawn to someone like that because of the way how they do it, and that is almost like against our nature. We're trying to always get the upper hand. We're always trying to prove that we're right. So doing this is almost like a reverse, and I guess it's something that we're trying to it's something like forgiveness. No matter how it's talked about, it's something that is still a big thing. I myself try to forgive. It's hard, but I guess that's what comes with being spiritually mature. Another thing is filtering emotion through scripture. That is something that is so vital, and I feel like someone who's spiritually mature knows exactly how to use scripture in a sense that they are, checking their emotions. Oftentimes when you're unbelievers, whenever you're in groups with people, whenever you're talking with people, and whether you're one or two, and there's a sense of emotion, it's not oftentimes you're spirit-led or your every whim, they said, every whim that you get is like a sign from God. It's not actually the case. So it's knowing how to keep your emotions in check. And I feel like that is so needed, something overlooked. And oftentimes when you're in communities, whenever you're in groups or in discussions, you may see things like that happening. But I know in the back of your mind, you're there thinking, okay, is he just bugging out, or is she just saying that because, they couldn't control their emotions and they're trying to say, oh, God said this or whatever. So yeah, it's being in touch with your emotions, knowing how to keep them in check, and also using scripture to fact check and using scripture to check your emotions. The thing with being a believer is that there is this emotional dependence, not emotional openness. because on one hand, on one side, you're trying to have on one side you're trying to exert faith, and how you try to do that is by being open to what you're being taught. But then the other opposite side is, because of what you're open and taught, you feel to need to continuously be led by your emotion and be, dependent on that, on whatever you feel at that time. Some people say it's their spirit, some people say it's not, and knowing how to discern within that. So I feel like that's also needed for someone who is spiritually mature. So yeah, I feel like I mentioned quite a few things, and I feel like there's more obviously to it than just the ones I mentioned. But these are the ones that kind of stood out to me, and I feel like I'm trying to get there, and I hope that other people can try to get there too. So yeah, be sure to check out more on this channel, and yeah, we're gonna keep the ball rolling, and hopefully see you guys next time.